Good morning. Morning, Dharmatalk. Once upon a time, there was an old couple living in the forest. They were charcoal burners, and they were very poor. Had barely enough to eat, and not much things in their little hut. It was a very, very poor life. But they were very good people, and a fairy watched them for a while and then decided to help them. So, one evening when the couple came back from work, the fairy entered their little hut, not through the door, but just showed up like that in the hut. The couple was so stunned that they could not say anything, welcome her. They were just frozen. And then the fairy said, "You're so poor, you work so hard, and you're getting so old that you soon can't work anymore, and you're worried about what happens then. You're such good people, I want to help you. I grant you 3 wishes. Before the couple could say anything, the fairy had disappeared again, the same magic way. She came, she left. The couple took a while before they woke up from their stupor, and then they discussed, what can we buy, what can we wish, and what can we do? Could we wish for money or a house or this and that? We were all excited. And then they noticed they had so many ideas and were so excited, and they said, it is so important. Let's not decide now. Let's go and rest, and tomorrow we take the time to really reflect and then to tell the fairy those 3 wishes. It was late and they were hungry and needed to sleep. So the women prepared the dinner, the usual dinner, just a simple porridge, gruel. And while she was stirring it in the pot, she sighed, as she so often did. Oh, I wish I had a sausage with it. She hardly had said that, there was a sausage in her pot. She realized what she had done. She was terrified. And her husband got mad at her and said, how can you waste one of those very precious wishes? You stupid woman, I wish this sausage on your nose. And there was the sausage on her nose. Now they both weren't angry anymore, they were desperate, they were so disappointed, so sad. They realized that they needed to use their 3rd wish to get this sausage off the lady's nose, woman's nose. Afterwards they were more sad and unhappy than they had been before. Beware of what you wish. It might come true. So, I would like you to close your eyes for a moment to come to meditation and imagine the same fairy comes to you now and asks you, what do you want? I will grant you 3 wishes. What would you wish? Only 3 wishes, yeah? Not more. You seem to be busy wishing. In his first talk after enlightenment, the Buddha talked about happiness. Or, to be honest, he talked about suffering and the end of suffering. He spoke about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Paths. The Four Noble Truths, I want to introduce them shortly. The first one says, maybe I'm writing on the board. No, nobody reads my handwriting, really. Oh, well, it's easy. The first one is, there is suffering. And I guess everybody can agree with this. We know from our own experience there is suffering, even if for each one of us suffering might be a different thing. And the second noble truth, there are causes for suffering. For the Buddha, most of the time these causes lie in the food we take, the nourishments, the nutriments for our body and our mind, the poisons we take into our body and mind. But this is not the only cause for our suffering, but one the Buddha looks at very often. And the third noble truth is there's an end to suffering. Thai like to say, end of suffering means the beginning of well-being. And I now call it happiness. That is, for example, if we stop taking those nutriments, stop putting poison in our body and mind. That's one possibility to come to an end of suffering. And the fourth Noble Truth says there's a path to the end of suffering. There's a path to well-being, path to happiness. And this is the eightfold noble path. And that I want to write down. Right understanding. No, I print now. Right thinking, the second one. Right understanding could be, for example, interbeing or impermanence. Right thought could be a thought based on compassion and love. Right speech, a speech based on loving speech and deep listening and perhaps courage. The fourth is right action. Action, for example, that takes into consideration the well-being of others, not just egoistic action, doing something only for our own good. And then right livelihood. Choosing to earn our living without harming others. For example, also doing something for our environment. right effort, that we should not just think, oh well, I don't do anything, it will come all by itself, but we also should not strive for something and really want to get at this, but the middle way, we could say, to do the right effort, we like to say effortless effort. Do something but without straining, mindful. Right, mindfulness is the next. And the last one is right concentration. This is the Buddha's path to non-suffering, to happiness. And when I look at it, I see that the first 2.5, the first 3, but I count this one twice, are related or bring about wisdom. And these 3 or 2.5 are about ethics or virtue. And this is the practice, the Buddhist practice of mindfulness. It's one path. I like to say it's like a big strong rope that is made from 8 different threads. And if you really have a strong rope, it's strong only if you keep all of it. If you pull it apart, then it loses its strength. There is no right practice of mindfulness without wisdom and and ethics or virtue. The 5 mindfulness trainings are important for our practice of mindfulness. And the wisdom is generated by all of it, not just by right understanding, but our practice, our living, and our thinking together make this Eightfold Path. It's a unity. If you look at Thai, he radiates mindfulness, wisdom, and ethics or virtue. You cannot say he's strong on only one. He might speak most about mindfulness, but just looking at him, he is this. This is the core of the Buddhist practice or teaching. Virtue or virtue, concentration and wisdom or insight. The Buddhist path to happiness. And we don't need to say, I'm not ready to, I'm not yet there. We can do the first step, it can be a small step, but start walking on this path. Even if we don't get to the end of it, that's not the idea of it. We just start with one and we will come to the next. We can take the 5 mindfulness trainings and belong to the right action, but it's obviously also wisdom and mindfulness in it. And just as a footnote, just because it's interesting, Aristotle is his view on happiness is very similar. It's very important for him, and he says happiness comes out of wisdom and virtue at the service of polis, of the community. And the community, the Sangha, is very important to the Buddha as well. This is a happy life, a good life. When we hear good life in our days, our time, perhaps not only in our times, we think of something quite different. Oh, that's a good life. He has a lot of money, he has a lot of whatever, and not at all of something according to the Eightfold Path. Good life for us, happiness for us, means to feel good, to be healthy, to have good relationship, to have a good job, to earn good money, to receive recognition and love, and to have the means to do what we want. There are many, many pleasant things in our life, so we have a lot of pleasant feelings. So we feel good. Happiness as a feeling, not as a practice. For the Buddha, it's a practice, a lifelong training. For us, it's a feeling, a fleeting feeling. And we don't want to have suffering, we just want to have the happiness. There's never been a generation before us that had as much money, food, houses or apartments, cars or transportation, flying around the world, possibilities of transportation, of easier relationship, beginning and ending a relationship. There has never been a generation that had easier job access. You could start a job, get another job, and get from very poor family into a very high position. You can social mobility and social security too. Healthcare, everything is as good as it's never been before. But are we especially grateful for this? Are we especially happy because of this? Does all of this, we work so hard for it, does it bring us more stress, more frustration, more divide in the family, more envy and jealousy, more broken families and lonely kids? Is it worth the price? We want to have everything and not miss out on anything. However, if we eat cake, the first part, the first piece, might be just very delicious. The second one, habit starts. And if we continue to eat, it's sort of nearly disgust, or we feel sick. No, I don't want it anymore. And this is with everything. I'm not against the good things, not at all. We need some things that are just simply good and good moments, but we should know when we have enough. And it's good to also notice when I'm so dependent on positive feelings and positive things from the outside that I lose my freedom. But I myself sometimes feel, I sort of badly want something and I don't really need it. I have enough, or I don't need that really. And then I think of a story of Tolstoy. How much earth does one man need? It's the story of a man called Pahom. He lives in a village where, for whatever reason, at that moment, land is sold very cheaply. And he can afford it now. So he buys some land, and he is so happy. Now he is a landowner. And this happiness lasts for a while, and then he notices, before, for him, landowner was a lot, but now he is a landowner, and oh, there are those who have more than I. They have big land, big land owners, families that own land since generations. And so he starts being unhappy. And he starts making remarks at them, showing them disrespect, and starting to quarrel, and they show him their contempt. He is a parvenu. So after a while it gets so uncomfortable for him that he decides to, when he hears that there is land cheaper than the one he has, he decides to sell everything and to go to the east where the land is cheaper. And indeed he finds a land 10 times as big as the one he has had before, and he's 10 times happier and 10 times more proud. However, after a while the same thing starts. There are those who have more than he has. And he starts making life difficult for himself by being aggressive to them and starting to fight with them again. And so it gets so difficult that he has to leave again. And this is in Tolstoy's very beautiful language. He shares the whole society or pre-revolution society with the old the old families of landowners, and how his wife then, who has special clothes and things now she can represent, and so on. It's really very beautifully written. And then he is so unhappy in this situation again. He is not what he wanted to be recognized, and so he goes. When he hears that there is land still cheaper further east, he sells again everything to go further east. And then he comes to the place that he was told, and he sees some people sitting there on the ground, like a circle of people sitting there. And he says, "Is it true that you can buy cheap land here?" And they answer, "Yes, we can buy land. There's a lot of land, very cheap, no problem. Just one thing, you can't buy as much as you want. You can buy only as much land as you can walk around. You can circle or make a square, but you have to go around it and come back to the same spot. This in one day, from sunset from dawn to sunset." And he is happy to do this. And next morning, before the first sunlight comes, he is there at the place where he wants to start with his land. He has chosen it before. And there he is with his servant, I guess some people from the village. He has a sign there, mark, that he knows where to start and stop. And then with the first ray of sun, he starts walking as fast as he can to get as much land as he can. And then by noon, it gets really hot. He's hungry, he's thirsty. He just goes on, and he notices he doesn't have yet as much as he wanted. So he starts running. And when the sun goes down, he is exhausted, but he still has to make it to the point now to close the circle. And as exhausted he is, he runs for his life. He runs and runs and runs as if for his life. He runs, and there the sun is going down, and with the last sun rays, he makes it with the last sun ray. He is there at this point and collapses, falls and dies. And his servant takes a shovel, digs a grave of 2 meters, puts his body in and closes the grave. how much land does one man need? Very beautiful story, you can read it. Yes, happiness is often the goal of our life, but do we mean this kind of happiness? When we, even if we hit the jackpot, get the first prize in the lottery, those who win the first prize in the lottery, they usually are happy, much happier for exactly around 1 year, not exactly, for about a year. And after that, they come back to the usual. They were happy like this, they get the money, and for about a year they're up there. Then they come down for about, after a year, on the level of happiness they were on before. And the same is more or less true for people who have lived through very difficult times, like those who have had an accident and were paralyzed. They are depressed, they are close to suicide, they go down quite a bit. And then they stabilize after a while and come back to the level they were before after 2 years. So it suggests that we have a level of happiness somewhere and we go around it, whatever we do. Only if we lose a beloved one close to us, dies really a very close person, then we don't easily go back to the level we were before. There has been done much research about happiness, and they have seen that the things we strive for, we want so badly, the outer circumstance, or the circumstance of our life, like education, income, job, health, also health, makes up only for 15% of our happiness. 25% is made up by our genes, our parents and grandparents. But the largest part, 50%, is entirely up to us. It's our lifestyle, our spiritual or mental training, like mindfulness training, our way we react to things. Most important, if we can accept suffering or negative events in our life, suffering, or if we fight it, resist it. When we need a stable mind in order to face the vicissitudes of life. When happiness, when health or our possessions are the main source of our happiness, then what happens if we get sick, or if we lose our job or our income of whatever sort? It is just in difficult times that we need happiness so much. Then it's so precious. Before I became a nun, the last year before I became a nun, I went to live with my mother, who had started with Parkinson, and it was difficult for her to stay alone. Not so, it was just the beginning, but still. And she was 85. Shortly after I had moved to her, I received the diagnosis that I have cancer, or it was an early stage of cancer, but still cancer. And it was difficult for me to tell her I felt. Now I just move in to help her, and then I bring her worries. And so we lived together with old age, illness, and death. She practiced her Christian faith, I practiced my Buddhist practice. And this difficult time is one of the most beautiful times of my life. Happiness does not depend on outer things. This I've learned very much. It's in my bones. I know it doesn't depend. Even if I myself often want this and that and think that makes me happy. But I know there's a much deeper happiness, especially when we are unhappy. When our mind is in turmoil, we are filled with fear, with worries, anxiety, or physical pain, or anger and jealousy. Then we can't be happy even if we have the best circumstances in our life, beautiful job and beautiful wife and beautiful house and whatever, but we can't enjoy it. And the stronger the difficult feelings are, the more we fight them, want to avoid them, try to push them away, and the stronger they get. Usually we define freedom as being able to do what we want to do. However, in Buddhism, freedom is freedom of negative feelings and thoughts, freedom of negative habit energies, freedom of our compulsion and inner fights, freedom as inner peace and equanimity, relatively independent from outer stimuli. So when we come to meditation and we hear we should sit quietly and we have a lot of difficulties inside of us, we don't like sitting with difficult feelings. We can't escape them with whatever we usually use to escape ourselves. And then we start very slowly with small things that when you're upset about something, not a terrible insult from a beloved person, but a little thing, and say, what is happening in me now? Oh, I'm upset about this. And is it okay to leave it there? Can it be there? Is it okay? Yeah, it's okay, I can hold it. And then we allow it to be there. Give it space instead of fighting it. And that helps it to calm down. And then when we continue to practice, we start having a more confidence in we start developing confidence in our own practice, in ourselves. We know, yes, I can come home to myself and I can calm my feelings until we come home and sit in a storm, and it's okay. But we shouldn't start with a storm. When our feelings, when our heart and mind are quiet, then we are not so dependent from outside stimuli. We can. It was our agitated mind that made us run after pleasure, after consumption, after all those things outside of us. So we would not feel the pain. We didn't want to come home. But once we have peace in mind, we don't need to run after happiness. We know it's here in the present moment, and our mindfulness will help us to be aware of it, to come in touch with it. And we'll be very grateful for this. I know that many of us don't have such a superficial view of happiness. You might have quite some deep understanding of happiness. But are we able to realize it in our life? Or does it just stay an idea? Often we or many of us just say, well, I'm very busy right now. I'm very busy. I have a lot of deadlines. I feel already overwhelmed. Yeah. And my work is very important to me. I can't give up on this. But in a few months, I can take holidays. And then I will look at my life. I want to change a few things. And from then on, things will change. I want a happier and healthier life. Above all, I want time just for myself, space to breathe. And I want to do some sport or Tai Chi or whatever. And there are some dreams. I want to go to, Australia all my life long, and I never got there. Or I want to play the piano, and I never did. Something, an old dream, I want to really look at it and do it. I want to spend more time with my family and with my friends. So, just need to wait a few more months, and then everything will change. This time will never come. Most of the time it doesn't come. So it's important, and we just postpone happiness and postpone it and say, well, right now something came and I couldn't do it, so the next holidays or next time I'll do it. And we keep on postponing it until we resign and just say, under the conditions of my life, the conditions are such that I can't do it. And we let go of our dreams. So it is important that we don't wait for this special time when everything will be better, but that we start looking at our own life now. We start meditating regularly, or fairly regularly, or at least take time off on the weekend, just quiet time for ourselves. And then ask ourselves, what is happiness for me? What is it that I really want? Some things might be unconscious. And are they wholesome or unwholesome ideas? Do I want to live my dream alone or share it with others? Perhaps we can't come up with an answer right away. We can look into the past. Do I really... Sorry. What made me happy in the past? Perhaps it was very peaceful, deep peace in nature, or it was something, happiness shared with a beloved person, or I helped somebody who needed help, and it gave me great satisfaction and happiness. And we can look if our dreams have changed. Maybe when we were younger we had a dream and we kept in our mind and always feel, I want to do this. And now, maybe because of age, that don't mean that we are too old to do it, but that our life has changed and our circumstance or our development, we don't have this dream anymore. Or we look and really we cannot do it. It really isn't just, oh, I need to do this and I can't take time. But it really is absolutely impossible. We have to give up a dream. Then we can grieve this dream. Allow the sadness to come up and say, yeah, I really wanted this and I understand now. I have to choose, and if I choose, or it don't have to choose, but isn't possible for whatever reason. But that we become aware of the dreams of our life and see, am I living accordingly? Or am I at least going in this direction? Or am I going totally in the opposite direction? At the beginning we looked at 3 wishes the fairy granted us. Perhaps they were deep wishes, perhaps they were sort of like the lady just said, oh, I wish I had a sausage. Was it just the everyday, oh, I want to have this and that, or was it something deep? Life is relationship, is connectedness, is interbeing. When we are loved and love a person, then we are happy. A loving relationship is regarded usually as the greatest, one of the greatest treasures of our life. So we all want relationship. But does relationship alone just per se just make us happy? I'm afraid we fall in love and then we are happy for a while and then it goes down quite badly. We get quite unhappy in many cases. Relationship needs practice, needs time, needs beginning new, needs taking care of our own habit formations. Relationship as such is not necessarily a source of happiness. Research has shown that couples that are without children are happier than those with children. However, couples do want to have children. They know they will have to get, at the beginning, pregnancy might be painful, or giving birth might be painful, and then they have to get up at night all the time. Might be a burden to the relationship. The child will bring a lot of worries, will get sick, and whatever financial burden. And when the kid gets into into adolescence, then might come a real crisis. So why would I do that to myself? Because I think it gives so much fulfillment that is beyond all those things. And just being loving couple is certainly very beautiful, but being parents seems to have a deeper attraction to us. And it's not just before we have the child and then we are disappointed, the connection stays for life. And people who take care of their old parents, they give up on a lot of comfort, a lot of free time or money or whatever to take care of their old parents. And they too feel that that is something they do with all their heart. Or old elderly couple where one helps the other. If the partner is sick, instead of giving him in a home or her in a home, they help each other. And it might burden the healthy partner's health quite a bit, and no more free time, no more rest, and no more life as it should be in old age. Easier life, I mean. But it's very important for those who help each other. Happiness is so much deeper than we usually look at, just those nice feelings. To go together through difficult times, to receive support and to give support, to feel loved and held by others is one of the treasures and the richness of our life. If we look at life only in view of happiness, then we have a very narrow view. Life includes suffering, includes death, includes loss, includes pain, and includes our resistance and battle with all the negative things until we let go and accept. And it's important to see that not only suffering is within our life, it is also important to see that there is no happiness without suffering. The two together are part of our human development. It brings us to understanding, compassion, perhaps wisdom, certainly maturity. And it is the whole of life we can look at and be grateful, not just the good parts. When I look at my own life, I see there are times where I succeeded and times where I failed. Times when I hurt others and times when I helped others. Times when that brought me happiness and times that brought me sadness. There were beloved ones I lost through separation and death, and others came newly into my life. I know that thanks to the difficult times, I receive so much help and support and love. So I feel that I am grateful for all of life and don't just want to take out some parts which I like and others I don't. I think it's important to make peace with our own life. Some years ago, when I went to have a medical checkup, the doctor said that I might have cancer. And I wanted to, and said I should take a test, this and that test and so on. But I want to take some time to just deal with this and sit with this. And also I thought more of alternative healing methods, but not rush into that really either. And I had courses and retreats inside and outside of the EIAB. And so I tried to make the appointments in between, and then I got wrong appointments, wrong test, and was sent home again and whatever. It kept on dragging on till, I don't know, 2 months or something. It was quite long, maybe only 6 weeks. And it started to be no longer the free time I had asked for, but I really waited now for the result of the test so I could get a result. And I started to think of life after death and about death and life after death, and will we be held responsible for our actions after death, and so on, was all my own questions, like everybody, or most people have this question then. And then I was for a retreat in Italy, and I finished it, and I stayed a few nights with a friend in Rome. One evening we went to the beach in the dark. It was very, very beautiful. She herself had cancer surgery just a short time before. And we could share, she had shared deeply, and then I shared too. I think it was the first or second person I spoke to. It was only 2 or 3 people I spoke to. And it was a very deep conversation. We came very close and sat there afterwards on the balcony of our house. And then I went into my room to do some Qigong, as I used to do at that time, every evening. And while I did my movement, I did it in front of a desk with a photo, and it was a newspaper clipping. And the evening before I hadn't looked at that photo, but now I thought, what is this? And it was a photo from the war in Iraq. A man just showed utter despair, carried a child, probably his son, was either heavily wounded or dead. And the friend had put this newspaper photo on her desk, but like you put a photo of a beloved one in a frame. And while I was looking at that photo, all of a sudden there was a lot of energy in me and around me. I did my movement no longer as clumsy as I usually did them, but very, very soft and swift and totally different. I didn't know what was happening. And then in front of my inner eye, I saw a stream of happy, loving people just came streaming down there. And right beside it, a stream of suffering and dying people, of violence and war. And it came both from the same source, the ground of all being. It took about, 10, 15 minutes. I don't know. I had no feeling for time, but it was sort of forever. It was keep on flowing down and flowing down. Enormous amount of suffering and happiness there of people. And when I continued to my exercise, I was thinking of Shiva, the Indian god of destruction usually. But then I thought I knew sometimes Shiva is also standing for creation, at the same time for creation and destruction. I had this experience and I can't explain it, and I just let it be where it is. And I would have forgotten it, but sometimes when there is big suffering, not personal suffering, not mine and not yours, but sort of on a scale of a war or of injustice for a whole people, then when I suffer very much or revolt against it, then just sort of a tiny memory comes up and helps me to accept it. I want to read a quote of Thai. I knew finding truth is not the same as happiness. You aspire to seek the truth, but once you have seen it, you cannot avoid seeing suffering. Otherwise, you have seen nothing at all. When we have strong suffering, difficult crisis in our life, or a serious illness, this can cause us trauma that leaves its scar for all of our life. We speak of post-traumatic stress disorder. However, in the last decades, they've found a new expression, post-traumatic growth. Both together show the reality of trauma, the reality of suffering. Can destroy us, or it can lead to growth, inner growth. Those who had trauma and gone to trauma, they know it's great suffering and they don't want to go through there again. But if they've experienced growth afterwards, they say, yes, I am grateful for it. It has changed my life to the better, made it totally much more positive development ever since. And they say they feel more happy, they feel happier and stronger, they are more open-minded and more compassionate. I myself have experienced post-traumatic growth. I have experienced this, and I imagine quite a few of you have experienced this as well. I found another quote I like very much, and that is of the poet Rumi of the 13th century, the Sufi master. Grief can become the garden of your compassion. If you keep your heart open during all experiences, your pain can become your best friend on your lifelong search for love and wisdom. And now we invite the bell, or 1 or 3 as you wish, and then we have a meditation, and Sister Songnam will do a few exercises so we don't get tired before we start the meditation. Thank you. Just one second. So we close our eyes. Come to our breathing. Breathing in, I feel the abdomen rising. Breathing out, the abdomen falls. In, out. What is your deepest wish, your deepest desire? And what does this mean to your life? What is your deepest wish, your deepest desire? And what does this mean for your life?